good day. Thank you for coming in.
Hi. Thanks for coming in. We're happy to have you.
It was tough getting in here, walking through all those people waiting in the lobby to come in here and watch the podcast.
They wouldn't leave you alone.
I know, Simon.
Like tearing at you. I guess you got tear.
I was jumping in front of you because they were all asking for your autograph and not me, and I was feeling a little left out.
I took the back entrance.
Yeah. Well, this is the Autoscope podcast, Conversations with Nerces Mavelian. We welcome here to come in and talk a little bit with Nerces here about all range of things automotive. And most recently, we're coming up, and it's obvious, you stop in Lowe's or Home Depot and there's already pumpkins for sale and other things that fall is coming. Fall is coming, even though it's the end of August, but fall is coming. And so we want to get ahead of it and help our viewers and our customers be aware of fall maintenance to get you ahead of it before it happens. And I know that you have a list of items that you always want to discuss with your customers.
Probably a good 10 list of things that we need to prepare. Winter is going to be close. We have a lot of rain coming in. Certain things that you want to make sure your car doesn't give you. The last thing you want is your car giving you problems in any time, but especially in the fall and winter weather. And a little bit of a care would actually get you a long way. I would start with checking the belts and hoses, making sure that the belts and hoses don't have any frays, any cracks. If they're about 7 years old or older, please just replace them, the main ones at least. Because they're rubber, they're going to start cracking, they get very brittle, and
well, is that a good idea after the summer with a beat down from the heat?
Not every summer.
The belts are being stretched or expanded because of the heat, and
right.
So you want to take a look at them.
Yeah, have them take a look at it. Usually belts and hoses, 7 years is a great time to replace it because rubber doesn't last very long. Of course, it depends on how much you drive, but I would recommend having the car in twice a year to your mechanic just to say, hey, does it look good? If it looks good, great. But if it's 7 years, maybe you should just have that checklist of why don't we replace them? Belts and idlers, because they run all the time and they have a chance to stretch, and if they get frayed, they're going to break and leave you stranded. Usually you only have, most cars, one belt that runs everything. So you want to make sure that belt doesn't break and leaves you stranded, because if it does, you're not going to make it. Please, a lot of people want to get off the highway, the next exit. If the belt breaks, you want to pull over as soon as you can. It beats the chances of damaging something else, like your engine.
What I want to mention there is that I hope that everyone watching here, you don't wait 7 years to have your belts checked. And I know that every time they bring in. You come into Autoscope, you take a look at those.
We take a look at it and make sure everything's okay. But even if it's okay, at the 7th year, sometimes you can't tell that the rubber product or plastics have gotten real brittle. You've gotten rubber bands before when they're really nice and stretchy, and then about 2 years later, you do this and it breaks, right?
Yeah.
That's what really happens. The actual rubber is disintegrating or decomposing, whatever you want to use that word. It just doesn't work anymore. So the bonds don't hold together and it breaks. That's the reason why. But coming in every 6 months, twice a year, just to have your car looked over. A lot of the cars, they have the extended car maintenance, scheduled maintenances, and we're seeing a lot more cars that come in with issues that it could have been prevented if we had just gotten the car in every 6 months to take a look at it. If you drive 10,000 miles, you're probably going to come in once a year till you have your service done. I'd recommend come in just as a 6-month check. And if your service station or shop doesn't recommend it, put that on your calendar and come in every 6 months and say, you know what, I just want to check up. Believe me, a good ethical shop's not going to take you for anything except for make sure that you're in good shape.
It's interesting. I hadn't thought that much about the belt or belts, and that it is really critically, important on the vehicle. I mean, it drives everything, the alternator, your air conditioning, everything.
Right.
And I guess I've always taken it for granted.
I know.
You don't think about the belts, but they are key to how your car operates.
Yeah. Just the same.
So that's a good point. And maybe the fall is a good time to really think about and come in and have it checked along with your other items here.
Yeah. Well, the same thing with fluids. If you don't replace your brake fluid, fall has a tendency to rain a lot more, and the brake fluid absorbs moisture, and of course that goes down into the whole system, and especially where it's critical, where the pads create a lot of friction, because that's what you use to stop the car. And if you have moisture there in the fluid, as you create lots of heat, the bubbles that are just like a Coke bottle, when you open it up, you have bubbles coming out. With lots of heat creates tiny bubbles, little steam inside that brake fluid. Of course, that will give you a brake fade, because hydraulics don't compress theoretically, but air does. So all of a sudden, when your brake goes down because you haven't changed your brake fluid, because it has a lot of moisture on it, and the steam is generated after a few times of braking, then you have bubbles in your system. Then you have to bleed it. So every 2 years, just replace your brake fluid. You won't have any issues on that.
And that's what bleeding is, when you bleed the blade.
Yeah, when somebody says, I want brake bleed or brake flush, usually bleeding system, is literally you're taking all the air out of the system by putting new fluid in it and forcing the old stuff out.
Oh, okay.
Now you have to be careful. You can't just pour that in and open this. It's not like a faucet you literally have to use pressure to drive it out, or a lot of the cars with the ABS and the hydraulic systems that for anti-lock brake systems, they have to be activated, that little pump, so it also flushes that fluid out.
Oh, I got you.
Right, so it's kind of a critical. If it's a simple older car, you can do it yourself by putting a bleeding, and somebody pumps the brakes and holds it while somebody else opens it up, or they have mechanisms or equipment that actually hook to the brake reservoir and apply pressure with new brake fluid in it, so it actually pushes it out, and you can do that yourself. But you still have to have a machine to activate the ABS unit, anti-lock brake system unit, to flush it out too. Otherwise, you still have the old system in there. So also transmission fluids, coolant's very important when winter's coming. I know some cars are only at 2 years, 3 years, some are 5-year coolants. We can tell you, your shop can tell you, but please have those checked. Transmission fluids usually land 35 to 50,000 miles. That needs to be replaced too. So look at your maintenance records. If not, just give us a call. We'll be glad to help you with that as well.
Well, in transmission fluid, you're both for manual and automatic vehicles?
Mostly
How does that
automatic.
work? Well, okay.
Even the standard transmissions, they will need replacing too, because remember, there's always, as you change gears, the metals themselves, they will have particles. Every time you change a gear, some of it will wear out. It's like an old step. You see, you're walking, eventually everything wears out. Whenever something else touches, it has a tendency to wear some of it out. The lubricants keep that from happening, because you have a layer of kind of an air hockey type of effect, where that's what the hydraulics, but you still have contact where you're going to bring the shift. Mm-hmm. When you shift it, your gears have to mesh into each other. Their friction stop up. Even in manual transmissions, they will wear out occasionally, but the metal pieces, the powder, will end up at the bottom of it. That's why manual transmissions have a drain plug with a magnet on it, so it catches all those magnets. And you get discard that when you put the new fluid in. Automatic transmissions, they basically have friction plates that when they actually come together and they cause the friction to drive that, and they'll start to wear out, and they'll have particles of that brake type material that in the bottom. So the filter you replace, and then you replace the fluid, and you have, if you don't replace the fluid, then those particles will actually become more abrasive, and they'll wear each other much faster. So every 50,000 miles is a good time to replace your brake fluid. Coolant, of course, we all know, antifreeze, lubrication that's in them that actually helps the water pump and doesn't rust the internal parts of your engine. So it's important things. Differential fluids, all the fluids. Make sure that when you're due, have them replaced. Full time is a great time to have that done. Tires is one of the most neglected thing. Even though when we have tire pressure monitoring systems that tell us the tire pressures are low, we see a lot of cars come in with too much pressure, or tire pressure monitors themselves have a lifespan of around 7 years. They have batteries in them, and you can't replace the batteries in them. You have to replace the whole tire pressure monitoring, the TPMS sensor itself. And that means breaking the tire down, putting that new TPMS in, and then put the tire back on. Now, if you're getting a new tires, and everybody does, and you've got around 7 years, go ahead and replace them. Again, the battery maximum life is around 7 years on those, and some will fail a lot sooner. So if you're getting some tires for the fall and your car is about 7 years old and you've never replaced the monitoring sensors for your tires, just go ahead and replace them. It'll save you a lot of money later on and headaches, because you got to break them down and put them in. And don't just do one at a time. Do all of them all at the same time. I would highly recommend that as well. So,
it's interesting with like tire pressure. It can be detrimental to the car ride, the car mileage, and everything. To be under pressured or over pressured.
Yeah, if you have too much pressure, then the tires will wear on the center, because you basically are, doing this, and only a little part of it's touching the road. And if under pressure, then you have this concave where only the sides are touching, and of course you wear the tires prematurely, and you get really lousy gas mileage because there's a lot of friction there. So anyway, that's tires, very important. And in the winter time and when it's raining, you want to make sure your tires have plenty of threads, as everybody says, that, so you can channel water out. Otherwise, you're going to have a air hockey system. You're going to hydroplane everywhere. You can't really get rid of the water. So that's what I would recommend as well. Okay, what else?
You had some other items. Well, like with the rain and that type of thing. Also, wipers. Check your wipers also for the fall.
Wipers. Freeze. We don't get too much snow here, but when it does snow and it does freeze, you don't want to just turn on your wipers, because it'll break them and tear them. Take care of them. Pull them up. Get the ice out, and then put them back down. Don't be lazy and just turn on and turn the defrost on and hope that it's going to do it, because then you're going to ruin your wipers. And wipers, I have to say, it's actually, if it doesn't rain, it's actually worse for them if you don't use the wipers. Here, we sometimes don't get any rain in Dallas for a long, long time. And the wipers have a tendency to be on the windshield. Instead of being straight and squeegeeing out, they end up curving, and that will not do a very good job of wiping. You need that
combination of the heat and dry
exactly
and not being used.
So I would recommend you use the wipers once a week. Just turn on the windshield washer fluid.
Make use of that windshield washer fluid that you need to check also in the fall.
Exactly.
To make sure that you have the proper windshield washer fluid so it doesn't freeze in the winter.
Right. So I'd recommend you get non-alcoholic windshield washer fluid, but get some of those concentrates in it. That actually works much better, especially on European cars. And it doesn't turn your reservoir blue, because you've seen some of those cheap bottles of
where they add the
blue stuff you add, and then next thing you know, your white reservoir is turned blue. It's like, it's got a lot of dye in it, of course, from the alcohol. So check the oil. The oil is very important to check to change. And check and change. Now, Some of the cars that we have don't have dipsticks anymore. So we have to be careful on, So we go too far. Usually every car comes in here, 99% of them are over their recommended maintenance for oil service. Because we rely on nose sensors too much. We'd like for you to come in once every 6 months. It does a lot of things. It makes sure that we have the eyes that make sure nothing else is wrong with the car. And if you drive 10,000 miles or more, 12,000 miles a year, like normal, change the oil every 6 to 7,500 miles. Believe me, you'll be better off than pushing it to 10,000 miles. And some of the cars they actually use up oil, so you don't last the full 10,000 miles to get changed anyway. That's our recommendation. All right, so what else did you need?
Talking about, like you said, every 6 months is kind of interesting because you do have some customers that their vehicles have 150,000 miles plus. And with my conversations with them, I've asked them, much of that, what do you attribute it to that? And it's because they've taken more care, like every 6 months coming in.
Sure.
So that proper care of the vehicle prevents, if you want to stretch it out, there's more of a chance of something happening, and then you're going to have a higher repair cost.
Of course.
So it's simple maintenance that really makes the car last longer.
It really does. Simple maintenance actually makes everything work better. It's much longer. Cars are very expensive these days, if you've noticed. It's just simple maintenance. You're going to spend the money to have it maintained. You just don't want to spend the money to have it repaired because that was overlooked or somebody didn't give you a heads up on fix this now so you don't have to pay me later or you don't have to pay somebody else later. So maintenance, that's what it is. Just like airplanes, you want to maintain that. You don't want any problems. The same thing with cars. You've got your family, yourself in it. Maintain it properly so you don't break down and cause issues.
It's a major investment of vehicle, and it'll make it last that much longer.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's for our fall maintenance. Thank you for walking us through that.
There's two things.
Oh, okay.
We got to do two more things real fast. Of course, everybody knows the batteries, right? Batteries are very important to make sure your battery's up to snuff. Have them checked. If it's 6 to 7 years old, that's a magic number. Just replace it because you don't want that chance. Sometimes they don't give you a warning. The other thing is check your lights. Make sure that the headlights sometimes are foggy or they have moisture in it. Just make sure all the lights are working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so we got to round it up. That's everything to be considered for fall.
Yeah.
For fall to come into Autoscope. And then, some later podcasts we'll talk about winter. And I have a tip of how to de-ice your windshield easily and cheaply with products from your home that you put in a spray bottle, and you can go out there and the ice just disappears.
Does your wife know about the?
Yeah, I sneak the products out there. But it works magically.
Right.
But you have to stay tuned for a later podcast to get that.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So thank you very much. Thank you for watching.
Yeah. Thank you. And if you like us, give us a thumbs up. See you later.
My husband and me have been loyal customers of Autoscope for the past 12 years. Nerces and the entire staff and the entire Autoscope team have treated us as family, and we love Autoscope, and I wouldn't take my car anywhere else.